Busy morning we have working here. Outstanding football insight. Tons of baseball to get to today, and our basketball crew is in full effect. The winds of change are blowing through the league. So who better than the Windman here to break it down with Bobby and company? Let's go. While you were sleeping, a very consequential trade in the NBA. The Boston Celtics have begun what we expect to be a dismantling of their championship team by sending Jrue Holiday to Portland for Anfernee Simons and 2 second-round draft picks. Simons joins Boston on an expiring contract. Holiday, meanwhile, is 35 years old. He's owed $72 million across the next 2 seasons. So let's start with what this means. How should one interpret the trade of Jrue Holiday to Portland?
Well, Anfernee Simons is 9 years younger, and he is an offensive three-point specialist. I do think that there will be some things that both Celtics fans will like about him. But let's be clear, the impetus for this trade was to save money, which Bobby can articulate the exact reasons, and this is just the beginning. With Jason Tatum likely to miss most of, if not all of next season, Boston is not in the stance where they want to pay hundreds of millions of dollars in luxury tax penalties. They're going to have to make several moves to save money and take a step backwards. There will be more this week. I would keep an eye on Kristaps Porzingis especially.
Kristaps Porzingis, an interesting one, and a few of their other stars that we'll get to in a minute. Bobby, get as granular as we can. What are we talking about money-wise?
Multi-step, try to get below the second apron. They were $22 million above it. This gets them to 18. There's going to be another move to shed salary. They were facing $500 million in projected payroll. I expect that to be half when we get through the next couple weeks here.
So what are these? Porzingis, would he do it? What else will get him there?
Porzingis, $30 million would do it. I think if you cobble together Sam Hauser and some other contracts, Sam's at 10. But I do think you have to thread the needle of shedding money, resetting the roster, but also have something competitive when Jason Tatum returns next year from that injury.
So that's really the question here, because as great a player as Porzingis is when he's healthy, there are all the injury concerns. But Markieff Morris, we're talking about 2 guys, and Derrick White, who has really emerged as a true NBA star, and then Jaylen Brown, who is a superstar. If you were the Celtics, would those guys be untouchable? Would you consider trading either of them in this circumstance? How do you see it?
I would make those guys untouchable, right? Because it's just a 1-year balance in between what you want to do for the next year when Jason Tatum comes back. So if I have at least those 2 guys, I can build around them. Bringing in Anfernee Simons, like Wendy said, that a 3-point shooter that you get a great look at for 1 year to see if he would fit with the JT and the JB. So yeah, I would keep Derrick around because he's a great defensive player. He's the type of guy that's low maintenance that you don't really, can fit with any type of team. You need those type of guys on your team. So. And with that aspect, like I said earlier, I will let JB grow into that number one position and just, have a good year and just really build on being contenders when Jason Tatum come back.
Now, the fall of 2026 is so far away. Like in the world in which we live today, that feels like an eternity away. So the idea that, all right, we're going to keep things in place so that they'll be ready for Tatum when he comes back in whatever that amounts to now, 14, 16 months, that feels like a dicey game to play.
This is the story of the NBA offseason. The Western Conference teams in an all-out arms race. We see Houston getting Durant. We see Portland, who is still a borderline play-in team, trying to staff up. We're going to see the Lakers try to make moves, maybe Denver try to make moves. And in the Eastern Conference, you have these contenders like Boston, potentially Indiana, potentially Milwaukee, reevaluating their situation because their star players are missing next season with Achilles tendon tear.
Again, I bring this analogy up one more time. In 1993, in the summer of 93, Michael Jordan retired for the first time. And those of us covering that team thought, well, there go the Bulls' chances. And the next thing I know, Scottie Pippen had one of the great seasons in the league. I still don't believe he wasn't MVP that year he should have been. They took the Knicks 7 very tough games in the playoffs and had a very questionable call go against them. Otherwise, they may have been in the finals against the Rockets. So you never really know what winds up happening.
No, we don't. And I think we're going to see resets potentially in Indiana and certainly in Boston, and then who's going to be left standing as far as who's going to be that Eastern Conference. I do think it is extremely interesting that the Western Conference teams are looking at the East and saying, okay, who can I pick off on these rosters to come join us? Portland is an extremely aggressive move. Team that won 36 games and now go out and trade for a 35-year-old player, a terrific player in Jrue Holiday, who has a ton of money left, $72 million after the next season.
Portland should petition the league to move to the East, and they might have a real chance. Our next stop takes us to Indiana, where our worst fears were realized yesterday. It's not a surprise, but when you read it, it still kind of hits you. Tyrese Haliburton did suffer a torn Achilles in that moment in Game 7 of the NBA Finals on Sunday night, playing with that calf strain. The injury cutting short one of the truly remarkable individual playoff runs ever, one in which Haliburton hit a tying or winning shot in the final seconds of a game in all 4 rounds of the playoffs. And he posted this last night at around 11 o'clock on Instagram. And I really do recommend you read the entire thing. It's very emotional. It's really a beautiful statement by a player. I'll read you just this part of it. He writes, "Honestly, right now, torn Achilles and all, I don't regret it. I would do it again and again after that. To fight for this city and my brothers, for the chance to do something special. Indy, I'm sorry. If any fan base doesn't deserve this, it's y'all. But together we're going to fight like hell to get back to this very spot and get over this hurdle." First time, Markieff, particularly the part where he says, I would do it again. You know, because those of us who aren't athletes, who aren't wired that way, will think, oh, look, I guess it turned out to be a mistake. Right? In the long run, it was the wrong decision to go back and play. And there's this guy lying in a hospital bed saying he can't feel his foot, saying if he was given the option, he would do it again. Markieff, explain that for those of us who could never understand it.
Well, no, as a basketball player growing up and loving the game, and it seemed like Tyrese Haliburton has this same love. You know, you pray to be on stages like the NBA Finals. You watch this your entire life, and to finally get here and be hampered by an injury, right? So, in the mind of an athlete, especially a guy as a true competitor, you never know when you're going to get back to the finals. So with that being said, like, you have this opportunity where it's not cut off. Like, I can actually still get out there, and being as though the success that he had in Game 6, right? I'm leaning towards Tyrese Haliburton in this one, like, because, man, just being on this stage and dreaming as a young kid to get here is like, I will give up anything in the world to get here, right? And you have past athletes that's never got there that will give up MVPs to get there. You had the same situation with Kevin Durant when he hurt his calf with Golden State in the Western Conference Finals, and he had a chance to play in the finals, and he got hurt. And I believe he would be saying the same thing. I still wouldn't change anything because this is what I dreamed of as a kid. I may never get back to this spot again, so I have to, take advantage of the opportunities, injury or not. Like, this is a position he put himself in.
I actually thought about this a little bit after reading it, and it occurred to me that the alternative is not getting hurt or not getting hurt. The alternatives are getting hurt or never knowing what would have happened. That's the decision that he had to make. Sure, if you could have told him ahead of time, if you play, you're going to wind up tearing the Achilles, then no, you don't play. But that's not the option they're giving you. The option that he has in retrospect is play and have it happen, or live the rest of your life never knowing what might have happened. It's such an interesting thing, I think. But one way or another, here's where it leaves us. Let's put the full screen up with the odds. Last week at ESPN Bet, A32, Indiana was the second favorite last week to win next year's NBA title. Now they don't even appear on this screen of Eastern Conference favorites. Their odds are 15-1 with the injury to Jason Tatum and Dame Lillard. Excuse me. You see the Celtics are down there. With all these injuries, a team like Orlando is suddenly in it. Let me reset here. The Cavs are the favorites, followed by the Knicks and the Magic. Then you get to the injuries with the Celtics. They're still in the conversation. And the Sixers, who sit there as well, relatively healthy for a team that we always say can never stay healthy. So, how do we look at the big picture of the East?
Well, and the Cavs are headed into the second apron starting on June 30th, and I'm not sure they're going to be able to re-sign Sam Merrill and Ty Jerome, two key backup pieces for them. Ty Jerome was a Six-Man of the Year candidate, so I don't know where they're going to be. Meanwhile, the Knicks, because of Jalen Brunson's willingness to take less money, they actually can add to their roster. And so I would even not be surprised if in a week to 10 days that the Knicks close that gap or maybe even pass them if they add and the Cavs lose a piece. And so if you look at the other teams, the Magic have never won a playoff series. I don't know what Joel Embiid is going to look like in the fall, much less next spring. The Celtics may be taking more pieces off. Like, if you're in the Eastern Conference right now, this is an opportunity. And certainly, as more teams, look at this, it's possible that other teams could say, maybe we should take a shot and try to move in there. A team like Detroit, like the Eastern Conference right now, is in a big swinging flux.
There is, by the way, one addition the Knicks will most certainly make, and that is they will at some point here hire a new head coach. And Shams is reporting this morning that they have interest in a Minnesota assistant named Micah Nori. What can you tell us?
I believe that interview already took place.
Okay.
And Micah Nori has been a longtime assistant in the league. He stepped in for Chris Finch last year when Finch had that knee injury. He was in the front of the bench while Finch was behind the bench. The Knicks are going to interview, I think, some more candidates as well. They are not settled. They are not done. They're almost certainly going to move through the draft without a head coach. They don't have a first-round pick. That's not that big of a deal. They interviewed Taylor Jenkins and Mike Brown here in New York last week and did not make either of them an offer. So you move on from there and say that they're still searching.
So this whole idea that they fired Tom Thibodeau because they had someone or something in mind,
well,
clearly doesn't look that way now. Or
they were trying to get some guys, but those guys were working for other teams.
Right, exactly. And they didn't wind up getting them. And so now here they are without that. And so as we sit here this minute, Bobby, who do we like in the East?
I like New York just based on because they're healthy. They have their top 7 players under contract for next year. I think there's so many question marks with every team, as Brian laid out, whether it be Cleveland. I don't trust Philadelphia with Joel Embiid's health. Certainly Boston. I would have probably taken Philadelphia out, and I would probably put Detroit in that mix, just based on. But they've got decisions this offseason also. They've got to bring back whether Dennis Schroeder or Tim Hardaway Jr. or Malik Beasley. There's some questions there. We might even see like a sleeper team like Atlanta. I'm going to throw them out. Jump in here just because there's so much uncertainty in the Eastern Conference.
Isn't it ironic that the coach who runs his players into the ground leaves behind the only healthy team in the entire Eastern Conference? The Knicks are the only team that didn't wind up losing one of the most important players to an injury. Markieff, who's the team to beat in the East right now?
Yeah. I would go with Bobby on this one. I would say the Knicks just because of their core pieces that was able to keep together. But look, it's wide open. I think teams like Orlando might step in and be a top 3 team, top 4 team with the move they made with moving some pieces around. I think also Detroit, they had a great year and took the Knicks, and it was a pretty good series versus the Knicks. So this is wide open. I really can't put my finger on anybody, but 7 core players being back under contract, I think I have to roll with that one.
Watch the Pistons. Cade Cunningham is as good as any of the players we're talking about.
Wanna try to boast at what I look like. Them down, try to wear, I pull up all brains. Jimmy with the heat, I'm on fire. It's NBA over here, feeling fun.